Loving your neighbor is hard. Even in the best of times, obeying Jesus' command to love our neighbors as ourselves can be a struggle. But during these tumultuous times, when fierce political debates rage and social media brings us news of unending hate crimes, loving others feels like it becomes even more of a challenge. The world has become a very difficult place to live in, let alone love those around us. Hatred and anger are on the rise, with people from different races, religions, and cultures being targeted for their differences. That's why it's more important than ever that we find ways to love our neighbors in such a hostile world. Mark 12. Love your neighbor. In his famous Sermon on the Mount, Jesus tells us to love our neighbors as we would want to be loved. Though many people believe this means we should love every person as if they were family, Jesus is clear that this doesn't mean we have to love everyone equally. We're called to love those around us because loving our neighbors is the best way to live in peace and harmony with them. Recognize that loving others is a struggle for all of us. Loving others isn't just a nice ideal we can aspire to, it's a command that Jesus wants us to take seriously. But loving others isn't easy, and it isn't always something we do naturally. We're all human, and as such, we all have a tendency to be selfish and to put ourselves first. Because of this, loving others isn't something we can just do once and be done with. Loving others is something we have to keep doing, day in and day out, even when it's hard. Because loving others is such a struggle for all of us, we have to acknowledge that when it comes time to loving others, we won't be perfect. We'll sometimes fall short and make mistakes. Loving others is something we have to keep doing until we get it right, though. Remember the reason we're commanded to love our neighbors. In a world where many people are motivated by fear and hate, it's important that we remember the reason we are commanded to love our neighbors. We are called to love others because loving our neighbors is the best way for us to be safe and secure. When we don't love others, it often leads to conflict, whether it's in the form of a heated political debate or a violent hate crime. When we love our neighbors, though, it leads to peace and harmony. Loving our neighbors doesn't just help those around us, it helps us, too. Find ways to build friendship with people around you. When we are commanded to love our neighbors, we're not just told to love them, but also to befriend them. To some, this may sound like a lot of work, but it doesn't have to be. You don't have to go out of your way to befriend every person in your community. Instead, you can start by making new friends with people who are already around you. For example, if you go to school, you can make friends with the people in your classes. If you're a parent, you can befriend the other parents at your child's school or daycare. If you go to a religious institution, you can befriend the other members of your congregation. The more you befriend the people in your community, the easier it will be to love them. Don't just stop at loving your neighbors, also condemn hate crimes when you see them. While it's important to love your neighbors by befriending them, you also need to take a stand against hate crimes. For example, if you see a neighbor being discriminated against for their race, religion, or sexuality, you should condemn that hate crime. You should also condemn hate crimes you see online or in the news. You may not be the one being targeted, but it doesn't matter. You are still called to condemn all hate crimes because you love your neighbors. When you condemn hate crimes, you show that love is stronger than hate. You show that love can overcome even the fiercest of hate crimes. Loving your neighbors is a struggle in any era, but during these difficult times, it can feel impossible. But it's important that we don't give up. Instead, we must keep striving to love others, even when it feels hard. When we love our neighbors, we promote peace and harmony in our communities. In a world filled with so much hate and anger, that's a truly beautiful thing.